Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ian J. Cole and this is a series of videos about starting a record label. If you just arrived at the channel, all of the previous videos are down below, so that you can check the links out there. This is episode number 6, and in this one, this is the first of a two-part because there's quite a lot of stuff to cover. In this video and the next video, we're going to be looking at digital distribution. And I thought what I would do is I would start with the services that I already use, and then we'll go on and we'll look at some of the other services that are out there and the pros and cons of each of them, so that you can make your own mind up as to which service you think you should be using. Okay, so let's get that started. Okay, so what we're going to start with first of all is we're going to have a look at Bandcamp. Now Bandcamp is one of the free, there is a paid tier to Bandcamp, but actually Bandcamp is one of the free. Basically you can put up a free album or a free single or a free track onto Bandcamp, and you don't pay anything until somebody buys the downloaded track, when Bandcamp then take 15%. Now 15% might seem quite high. It does drop to about 10% once you have artist sales that surpass $5,000 because they're working in dollars. So let's have a look at Bandcamp. So here is the Sinners Music Bandcamp, and there is a couple of albums by me, a collaboration that I did, and a single that we put out for one of our artists, Diesel Dave. Now what Sinners Music would normally do with this is we would encourage artists to have their own Bandcamp site. We have on occasion set up a Bandcamp site for an artist where we then put their catalogue of music up for them. But generally we would encourage, that's why there's not much on the Sinners Music site. We would normally have the artist create their own site and build their own following on their site. Diesel Dave, bless him, was a gentleman in his 80s. Sadly he's passed away now, but we're still collecting royalties for him. And we put him on our Sinners Music site. We also put him with a digital distribution company. We use EmuBand currently, so his music is available for stream and download via EmuBands, so it's on Apple Music and all the rest of the companies. So if I want to go in and have a look at, I'm going to go into my personal Bandcamp site, and here we have a range of albums that I've put out over time. Sometimes I put things out on here that don't appear on iTunes and Spotify and streaming sites like that, or different versions. The Ian John Cole live album, which came out in December 2018, is not available anywhere else. There are different versions of some of those tracks available on the album that I put out in last April on Apple Music and Spotify, but fundamentally this is a different album. And what I sometimes do is make these albums pay what you like. You can set a price, or you can choose. I tend to do this, I haven't changed this, but I tend to do this around about Christmas time, so I will put out, or I'll make one of the albums freely available at Christmas for all of December and probably all of January. So the good things, the positive things about Bandcamp is that you can get your music out up there. You spend a bit of time, create an account, get the tracks up there. They want the tracks in a WAV format, so you can't upload MP3s. Although if somebody buying your digital album requests them, they can have them in different formats. But the minimum you can do is put up a WAV or the Apple format version, And then, like I say, when somebody downloads the album, then you get the funds less Bandcamp's 15%. The problem with Bandcamp, or the main problem with Bandcamp, the great thing is that it's up there. You've got your stuff out there straight away. You don't have to sign any record deals or any of this sort of business. You can just put the music out there. We sometimes use Bandcamp because there are things where you can have codes. What you can do is you can have what's called Yum codes. Now, they give you so many for free, but then you have to buy some. And what you can do with these codes is that you can give them to the media so that they can download the album for free rather than just streaming it. There is a limitation to how many times you can stream an album. I think it might be 10, 15 times, something like that. If anybody out there actually does know, but I know that there is a limitation, and then what happens is you get a message saying, you've listened to this album X number of times, I think you should buy it. So they do that. But if you wanted to give a Yum code to an online media site that's going to review the album, that's quite a good thing to do. So we've done that when we've put an album out that's going to go out on a full digital release through Apple Music and iTunes and all the rest of it. But actually what we've done is, in advance of that, we've done what's called a soft release on here that we've only promoted to the media. So we would email around saying, if you want to review this particular album, we have some Yum codes available. I don't know why they call them Yum. It's probably short for something. If you're interested, like I say, you get so many free, and then you have to buy them. So currently, Bandcamp account comes with 200 downloads per month, and after that you have to buy them. And I have bought some in the past when we've run out. So because we haven't had a release this month, we've got all 200 there available if we wanted to use them. The real downside of Bandcamp is that you need to drive people to the site. Unless you actually tell people about it, they're not going to find out about it, because there's so much music being released. You do need to drive people to the site. We fundamentally just use it as a promotional tool, so we put things up there that we're either going to give away, or a limited giveaway, or we want the media to go and use a Yum code and download. We don't treat it as a serious contender. It is great if you're not looking for a label, or it's the first place you're going to put, and you haven't got, you've got a low budgets. You can actually put your music up on Bandcamp and it's out there, but you're going to have to drive people to it. They're not going to find it just by randomly, which can happen on Apple Music or iTunes or Spotify, where the lists are created. Moving on, the next site that we use is Soundcloud. Now, Soundcloud, I've just been looking at the costs of how much it costs per year. The basic tier is free. If I just click here, where is it? There we are. Sorry, wrong one. There we go. So, SoundCloud, what you get. So, SoundCloud Basic is free. You just register. You get 3 hours upload time. So, you can put up, in effect, 3 albums, maybe 4 if you're lucky. And then you'd have to take something down before you can actually put anything else up there. At first, for the first year or so, I did have a free account. I then, because I've had a SoundCloud account since 2011. We don't bother with a separate Sinners Music account. It's the Ian J. Cole account that we tend to use. And for the last 5 years, well, probably since 2013, I've had what's called a Pro account, and it's gone up almost year on year. So when I first had it in 2011, the Lite account, which was gone now, was £23. It now currently, the 2018, which I paid back in December, was £75 for the Pro account. They bill it as £7.50 a month. So and it looks like it may have gone up slightly more since I paid for it in December. So I paid £75 in December. This would be about £90, isn't it? I haven't got my calculator here, but it's about £90. So it does tend to be going up, and it's at the point now where it's getting really quite expensive. What do you get? You get unlimited upload time. You can do scheduled releases. That's not something we've done. You've got full stats. You can embed tracks and albums in other web pages, which is quite useful. And we've done that on our Sinners Music website. I've not used Spotlight. Let's see what Spotlight is. Pin up to 5 tracks or playlists at the top of your profile. You can replace a track without losing the stats. I don't know why you'd want to do that, really. What's quite a turn off public stats and comments on a particular track. Access to SoundCloud Premier if eligible. Earn leading revenue share with monetizing your SoundCloud and distribute through all major music services, including Apple Music and Spotify. Now, I think this is fairly new, and I've not used this. It'd be really great if any of you guys have actually used SoundCloud Premier. I think you might have to pay extra for it. I'm not sure. Where you can monetize the tracks and obviously distribute to major music services. It'd be great to know, have a bit more feedback on that. That's not something that I've ever used. And then we've got SoundCloud Go Plus for an extra £5 a month. I think it's just ad-free audio and offline listening. Not something that I've been interested in. And then you've got SoundCloud Pro, which is slightly cheaper. You're down to a limit. You're limited to 6 hours upload time. That's no good for me, to be fair. All the rest of it is pretty much the same, with the exception of access to the SoundCloud Go Plus. Again, haven't used SoundCloud Go Plus. Don't really know what it's about. So, how do I use SoundCloud? So let's just have a look at my SoundCloud playlist. I'm not going to log in, but so what I've done here, I've got I basically use SoundCloud as somewhere to store tracks. Sometimes I'm quite happy. Usually the tracks that are on here are not complete. They're first mixes, that sort of thing, or they're demos of tracks. We don't ever really point people to it unless if I'm working with a band. There are some tracks up here which are private, so not everything's freely available. But while I was working with one of the bands for the label, and I was doing some mixing for them, I actually put up first mixes on SoundCloud so they could just stream them. We then stopped doing that. The reason we stopped doing that is because the SoundCloud algorithm did something to the mix. The mix didn't sound exactly the same as it was in the studio, but it gave them the opportunity of a first listen. The other thing that I do use it for is if I've created some music on an iPad, I found it very easy to just upload and then turn it private. So what you can't see here is there's probably another 20 tracks which are personal demos of work in progress that I've not made freely available. Some of these tracks you can download for free. Some of them, like I say, I've not monetized any of this stuff, but some of them, and it will say whether a track is downloadable. So that particular track, which is a work in progress, you can download it. And the stats I get, there's one track that was up here, and I've made it unavailable to download now. I can't quite remember where it was, but it had something like 100 downloads. So people were either downloading it and playing it. It wasn't a particularly long track, or they were using it in their mixes or doing something with it. So I just stopped that. So I use it as a place to, an online place to put work in progress, but don't regularly advertise the tracks that are up there. And I'm sure you could use it, and I do see other record labels using SoundCloud to actually be able to release music, because they're obviously clearly that is now the situation. The next place we want to move on to is I want to have a look at EmuBands. We now want to have a look at EmuBand, which is the main digital distribution service that Sinners Music use. Let's first have a look at pricing. Now, the reason that we went with EmuBands is, first of all, they're in the UK, they're Scottish. I've actually met some of these guys. They gave a presentation a few years ago at a record label session that was in Newcastle. That was the original reason why we went with them. Simple pricing policy. You sign up with them, and 3 tiers. So you can, a single is £25. That includes VAT, so there's no extras. 1 to 2 tracks, lifetime support. The artist keeps 100% of the royalties, and job done. Now that 1 or 2 tracks can be as long as you like. So I recently Sinners Music put out one of my albums from 2012 as a digital release, which was originally just available on CD. And because the original plan was that this 60-minute album should appear as 1 track, I was able to do it as a single. I put an extra 25-minute piece as the second track, but this album was available full 60 minutes, 1 track. So there is no limit to how long a track can be. EP, 3 to 5 tracks, again, lifetime support, artist keeps the royalties. And the album, 6 to 20 tracks. So I had over several years done a set of 3 albums, which totaled about, I think, 19 tracks in total. So 3 hours worth of music, 20 tracks, and I was able to, they've been available for a while as CDs, but I was able to put them out as a digital release, as 1 album, and putting all of the three albums together for 19 tracks for £50, which is you have to say is fairly reasonable, especially when there's no additional costs. So there's no, we don't have to pay a yearly fee like you do with some of these digital distributors. You have a label manager who, when you are going through the process of putting the tracks up and putting the artwork up, and they want the artwork in a specific way, and it's usually iTunes that are particularly picky about that sort of stuff, or whether you're going to do digital booklets and things like that, and your label manager will advise you. I mean, I've never needed to ring him, but I've had several email messages backwards and forwards about particular issues that I've had. He's always been very responsive. Will come back within next working day usually. So their services work really well, and they're very upfront about everything. The way that payments are made is that it's usually every quarter, although different companies will pay at different times. Let's just have a look at. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the store list. So here is a list of all of the stores that they deal with, and you can select or unselect whichever ones you wanted, really. We tend to select all, unless an artist tells us differently, and this list is growing all the time. If you want to be included in the iTunes charts, that's an extra cost. So if you're paying £50 for the album and you want it to be in the iTunes charts, then you pay a bit extra for that to happen. It's a one-off fee. So they do things like that, but all of the major streaming services are there. The other thing that happens with the payments is that you can request a payment, but usually what happens is they don't do a payment transfer until you hit £60. I've seen this before with other services. What we tend to do is we tend to leave the payments in the account and use it for the next release and pay the artist their royalties separately. But you can manage that however you want. I think we'll stop this video here, and in the next video we'll start looking at some of the other companies that are out there, and there is quite a lot. So if you've got any questions, pop it in the comment section down below. I'll answer any questions that I can. Thanks very much for watching. If you like what I do, hit the subscribe button, and a thumbs up is always much appreciated, and ding that little bell if you want to be notified when each video goes live. These videos tend to go live every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. That will continue for the foreseeable future, although there will be a couple of weeks at the end of July and August where I am away at Edinburgh Fringe Festivals, and for that full 10 days there won't be a record label video, but I'll mention that nearer the time. So thanks very much for watching. See you next video. Bye bye.